Hello, everyone. Welcome to the February edition of the Cloud Foundry Cap Call. And yeah, it's so nice to have everyone here today. So I did send out some information earlier about this call going to focus on a particular aspect of Jammy Jellyfish updates as the new Cloud Foundry Linux operating system. And so joining us are Ruben, Benjamin, and Ramon, who I know have been hard at work at making this possible. So big thanks to the three of you for taking some time out and helping educate the community about what's going on. So I'll just give a little bit of background and then switch it over to Ruben and the others. And of course, this is more effective if folks participate, ask your questions, what have you. So it's a good opportunity to talk to the contributors directly, and yeah, just make the best of it. So by way of background, I guess the CF community has done OS migrations in the past, obviously, and after the typical life cycle of a canonical release, I guess the community gets together and engages in a migration. Now, the migration is non-trivial, both in terms of efforts and expense. And so, fortunately, we only have to do this once in a while. Now, as a community, the sort of stewards of the project have decided that instead of moving from the Bionic LTS to the focal LTS, we're just going to take a jump to the next one. So this is going to be 1804 to 2204, and we're skipping 2004 in the middle. And the reason is we can just extend support and keep working with it for longer. It's just very basic operational convenience. So that's really the background to this. And so some, I guess, alpha or pre-alpha versions of Jammy have been made available. And so we're making a Jammy version available as a stem cell, and then in parallel also working on the CF Linux file system, and then making it available one component after the other along like the whole CF spectrum or the CF supply chain. Build packs are also included in this, so we're not going to leave them out. But to take you through all the sort of details, I'll, Ruben, why don't you get started?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ram. Yeah, you have explained most of it. Of the reasoning behind why we are skipping, right? We're skipping the vocal release because we just want to minimize the effort, right? It's an expensive thing to do. So by skipping or moving ahead or skipping a version, we just buy more time or of an LTS window, basically. So what we've done so far, I'm mostly aware of the stem cell related things because I'm on the Bosch core team, so I don't have much insight in what the build pack people are up to. But with regards to the stem cell, what we have done, so I think late last year, we've started a small spike, a group with our collaboration with SAP and VMware, where we started to see if we could already get a bit of a head start by just doing some basic work on vocal, right? Because Jammy is based on vocal. So we started that work, and then we got a pipeline going. concourse pipeline. So that was all the templating or the basically the naming stuff that was done. And then we found out that they actually already started publishing dev builds of the Jemmy stem, or the to be Jemmy image, or so there was a Docker image being built with the Jemmy stem cell or Jemmy tag. So we started consuming that, and that was all green and happy. And then we thought, oh, this is going great. And we started to deploy a CF, and then they started to make all the breaking changes. So then there was like the OpenSSL 3 bump. That was a big one. There was some GCC bumps, I think, that were incompatible with things. But I mean, the OpenSSL one is definitely the biggest one that is breaking all sorts of things. But yeah, eventually it has been like playing catch up. Basically, they bump something upstream again, and then we have to change our package definitions so that we know that, like, okay, this lib is now at this version or something, right? Because, but the nice thing is of this approach is that we are keeping up, right? It's not that it's smaller changes, because they break something and then we immediately have a red pipeline, and then we could just fix one thing instead of like having to do it all at once. So by keeping up with it, we were confident enough to publish an alpha release. And the reason why we did this is, I mean, we are ahead of schedule. This the RFC that has been scheduled or published, because I mean that says that this work that has already been done, right, should have been starting March next month. But yeah, we already have an alpha, and that just allows us to by publishing an alpha, we hope to have other teams that have give a head start to the other teams as well, right? That's basically what we're trying to do here. And one of the things here is that because of the OpenSSL bump, there's some Ruby issues. Ruby 2.7, 2.6, and even 3.0 don't work with OpenSSL 3. So you need to bump to 3.1. So for example, Cloud Controller and those types of things need to bump their Ruby version. And that's also true for the Bosch director and all the CPIs. So that is work that has been going on as well. We were luckily already on for the director on Ruby 3.0. So the bump to 3.1 was not so big. The CPIs are mostly on 2.7, 2.6, so they need to make a bigger bump. Also, the code bases are smaller. So, yeah, yeah, that's a bit like what it. That's basically the status. We have an alpha. Other teams are aware. We are ahead of schedule, and I think we're not far away from feature freeze. So they're gonna do a feature freeze on the Bionic side or on the canonical side, and then we're hoping to get to like a beta release of the stem cell once they actually publish the Jemmy image, make it like GA. And by then we also hope to have the director, the Bosch director, be compatible with Jemmy. So that should allow us during the beta to have at least maybe go in some dev environments. So that's what we hope to, at that point, we hope that the community starts maybe rolling Jemmy stem cells at least out for the director in their in some of their pipelines, maybe not to production, but at least help us gather feedback on this. Yeah. Questions?
From your experience, I know you're doing version bumps of various different packages and stuff like that. Are there new packages that are being added because of Jemmy Jellyfish that we need to be concerned with, or are there packages being removed because they're not going to be supported on Jammy Jellyfish that you're seeing?
I mean, the OpenSSL thing, right? That is the big thing, and then there's some
Yeah, all the compiler packages, basically everything
Yeah.
related to compiling has major bumps.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's also we have a lot more. They have done a lot of package segregation. It's like a lot of things have been pulled into small packages.
Mhm.
For I don't know, maybe for better upgrading or updating in the future. The stem cell is also a little bit bigger because the packages are way bigger than we expected. But yeah, the biggest one is the GCC that we see, and the OpenSSL and the Ruby one related to that. With the other things, we haven't seen that much issues yet. But yeah, we to be honest, we also haven't fully tested it with a lot of applications, so a lot of other software.
I think we there was an effort to get another Cloud Foundry deployed, right? With
There was.
the alpha or not? I don't know if that work was finished or not.
I don't think it's finished. I haven't not heard anything
Okay.
about it anymore. I know they were working on it at some point, but
Yeah. No, I mean, so from the first time that was tried, right? There were some issues that we found, and those were raised upstream with the, for example, the I think HA proxy or Nginx. Those had compilation issues on Jammy. If you search for Jammy and the Cloud Foundry org, you see that there's a lot of upstream issues already outside of the Bosch scope. So work has been going on.
and a lot of systemd changes. Systemd has been changed a lot.
But I mean, like all those things should, in the end, not affect release alters. Right?
I hope not. Yeah.
That those things will just need to be figured out by the stem cell in the Bosch Linux stem cell builder, basically, and then it should be fine.
But it gives us a hint of what will happen upstream relative to build packs and stuff like that, since things are changing, and so it kind of gives some
Yeah.
building stuff. It kind of gives at least a
Build-
clue. Stuff may
Build packs, I don't think they shouldn't really be concerned with.
I think they'll have to upgrade some of their packaging as well because of other stuff. So, which means that interfaces might change because you're doing major releases, and just this, equivalent to
Yeah, I mean,
stuff.
the Ruby thing will be big
Mhm.
because that basically means we need to drop all the Ruby versions.
Mhm.
I did do an experiment with so there's this thing with there's an OpenSSL gem inside that is basically embedded in the Ruby source code, but it is a separate gem, and that gem itself publishes that it's compatible with 2.6 Ruby 2.6. So I have done an successful experiment where I took like the 2.7 code base and backported, or just took that code base or that gem source and put that in the source, like because we compile Ruby from source in the Bosch release. I was able to get a 2.7 working that compiles on the Jammy stem cell. So maybe the build pack people want to look into something like that. Because I mean, for the Bosch releases, we can say, yeah, you just need to bump to 3.1. But if you have that requirement for all your apps, that will be a bigger thing, right? Because then that's
that was the reason for my question, to figure out what things we have to worry about as we.
Yeah. But
on that subject about build packs, I would like to mention we will be running Ubuntu 18 containers on top of Ubuntu 22 kernel. So this is what I call the Frankenstein problem, but it's still Ubuntu and Ubuntu. The Frankenstein problem is to run a glibc that is not the same and not guaranteed to work with the kernel. So inside the container, you are relying on the glibc, but the kernel is another version that the glibc was supposed to work with. because they have 4 years basically. But Ubuntu on Ubuntu is not that a big deal. I mean, you have bigger risk if you're running, let's say, Red Hat on top of Ubuntu kernel. And the kernel is still very conservative, so it shouldn't be a big deal. But still, there can be some risks about this Frankenstein problem.
Yeah.
And yeah, most people don't care about what kernel they have below the containers they are running, but they should actually.
But yeah, the idea is to still do like dual stack support, but I don't know, that still needs to be proven out, right? If that's hopefully it will.
Doing a new stack is a big deal because it requires to rebuild every binary dependency and put that on lines for the build packs to draw them when necessary. That's a huge effort, and I mean there are costs, storage costs related to that, and maintenance, because every binary dependency is compiled for every stack. So that they will be.
But I mean, like, no, so
yeah.
it is in scope, right? The RFC says that we're going to create a C of Linux FS4 rootfs. So it is going to be built. It's just a question of, can we get the current rootfs, C of Linux FS3, if that can still work on the Gemmy stem cell, right? If that, it should, right? But I don't know. That needs to be proven out. Like it worked last time that we got it working, but I don't know if that it required some things with tar. I think was, I don't know. There was some binaries incompatible or something, but I mean, probably we can get that to work. But we are not there yet, right? That will be the. That's why we have a year basically where we. That we want to figure all these things out and get that working.
The only other question I got is that I put inside, that I commented inside the proposal, is the time frame, because the ending of everything occurs at the ending of the bionic stem cell, and the sooner you can, if there's possible to get stuff done before the end, because we had problems this time around, right? Going from Trusty to Bionic, because Trusty was already expired when and Bionic wasn't completely done. So it caused frustrations in the community. I'm just hoping that we can alleviate some of that frustration, that people can see that the jammy jellyfish.
Well, that shouldn't be a problem this time around, because we are so far ahead of schedule.
But I mean, like, that's the stem cell.
One piece is ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
Okay.
All the other things need to be also done.
Right.
Yeah,
and
but
it's,
and
Tuesday.
It's excellent that you're ahead of schedule on the stem cell, because everything's based upon that. So you're not a blocker, right? Which is the most important thing, right?
They're an enabler.
Yeah, so it's great. So I appreciate all the hard work, Ruben, and your team, and SAP and Ramon has done on the project. So so thank you.
Yeah, one of the ways VMware gets around this is by VMware still shipping everything on Xenial, but then using extended ESM support, and that gives VMware customers still 2026.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know, but yeah. So that's why the Ubuntu ESM thing can be interesting, right? That's how you get around this problem, but it costs money. So yeah, but I mean, like, this is all we just have that year, but right, a year. That's the window we have where all this stuff needs to happen, because of how Canonical set things up. So yeah, hopefully we'll get everything resolved before that, and have enough time.
Question.
Yeah.
I have a question. It may be nice that on Bosch.io we distinguish releases that have successfully been tested on the new stem cell. maybe some kind of compatibility grid.
How would you do that? Where would you get the data from?
Yeah, good question. Good question. But yeah, this is to be worked out. Just just throwing the idea.
Thanks. Nice idea. I don't know how to do it, but yeah, we can think about it.
Yeah,
The problem is Bosch.io is not compiling anything, right? It's just taking a release from somewhere and posting it.
I know,
it's not
but
concerned with
yeah,
compatibility.
from the operator point of view, it would be nice to say, okay, this community release, I know it's working on that stem cell, and it help also distinguish Bosch release that are maintained from those that are not maintained.
The only thing we can solve this is that the actual release maintainers are going to update, how you add a new release to Bosch.io currently is just by adding a small text file, and you basically can add another table in there, but then the release engineer should maintain this. There's going to be a lot of PRs again. We could also
introduce new metadata in the config final, the main metadata of Bosch release, possibly.
I'm not sure if we can check this, but I'm not sure if this is the thing that needs a lot of effort from us at this point. I think as long as the stem cell is in beta, you just can assume that it does not work.
Yeah, no, sure. But it's been a long time that I've been thinking that Bosch release could at least declare with which stem cell they are compatible. And it was already a problem with when Red Hat stem cells were still maintained. You pick a release, you don't know if it's on which stem cell it's going to work fine. Sometimes it's sticky to Ubuntu. Sometimes it's compatible with quite everything, and sometimes it even works on Windows with some precautions.
Benjamin, I wonder if this is really an issue that ROM can actually help resolve by asking the stakeholders, what have you tested, what's going on, and maybe give a bi-monthly, every 2 months report saying, here's the status on Gemmy Jellyfish upgrades, right? This is what's been tested, this is what works, and it's more like a
would be cool.
It would be cool
because
right, just a simple blog post, and maybe that's the way to handle it. This way, just put in the effort and trying to record everything and what works and what doesn't on the stakeholders is more work than just asking the questions, what have you tested? And then they just, and Ram can write the article, or maybe Chris writes the article, or we write the article. It doesn't really matter, but the point would be kind of like a bi-monthly update. How are we progressing along the chain? Are we meeting the deadlines? Yes. The thing I want to do is give the community warmers and fuzzies on that. We are really taking this as a serious issue versus the last time where we said, is anybody doing anything? And you get no response, right? I want to avoid that. And because I think that harmed our ecosystem, because people, okay, so I want to be able to resolve, I don't want to harm the ecosystem, see that we're actually paying attention and moving forward.
I could imagine that over time, the CF deployment pipelines, once they are set up, can bring at least some data for the, let's say, most common Bosch releases that are used as part of CF deployment. I mean, today, I think they still run against Xenial, right? There's one pipeline somewhere well hidden that runs against Bionic, and yeah, there's nothing yet officially that tries out Gemmy, but for the future, I could imagine to drop Xenial and just to validate in standards Bionic stem cell and add a new one that hopefully colors green over time with Gemmy.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing people are interested in. Like, is CF compatible, right? All the other releases, yeah, are nice, but I mean that's not really hurting anybody. And people can PR and stuff like that. But this the main CF thing. That's what people want to know.
And then the stack itself, this the Linux FS4 stack.
But that's based on Bionic.
I understand. Right now it's based on Bionic, but hopefully there'll be one, whatever will be for Jammy Jellyfish as well, whatever that may be, right?
By the way, I'm taking notes into the CAB agenda document, the legacy one from a very long time ago. If anyone wants to add any comments or anything.
Thanks, Benjamin. Yeah, I think if manual updates for like the first few cycles are the best way to do it, I'm more than happy to step in and get updates. But like Stefan said, if there's some way of baking it into like a CF deployment thing, I think that would be super cool and super useful as well, and so much more scalable, obviously. So
another way to keep an eye on this or track of this is to attend the working group meeting, right? Of the deployments working group meeting. I mean that working group is still being formed, but I assume that there will be a lot of information there. Those are recorded and they will also be available online.
Yeah, it will take a little bit of time until this working group. It was just approved yesterday, so will take a little bit. And I know the work group lead pretty well, and he needs to come into this topic.
So you'll be ready.
No problem.
Chris, I think you had a question. Was that answered, or do you want a few more details?
Yeah, the question's answered. Thank you.
Okay.
Benjamin was on a roll and I didn't want to interrupt him.
Of course. All right. Do folks have any other questions? Anything else you wanted to add, Ruben, Ramon, Benjamin?
Other than thank you, Ruben, for all the work.
It was mostly Ramon.
Christine, you are raising your hand.
Yeah, Justin, go for it.
Just a quick question. I am a fairly new Cloud Foundry admin, for lack of a better word. I've taken on a project at the company that I work for, and we're kind of stuck right now on, and maybe I'm wrong. It's an assumption that I've made. We're still using the Xenial stem cell. And our security people are asking us, hey, when are you guys going to be moving so that we can get, security updates and all of those types of things? Is there enough support in the Cloud Foundry community for Bionic that we can go ahead and start using the ops files or changing the default stem cell to Bionic, and we won't have a lot of issues with our Cloud Foundry environment? Or is this something where we're going to have to wait the year until Jammy Jellyfish is established and all of the things have gone through? We're just kind of looking for a thing, because we've also looked at building our own stem cell with the canonical extended support. But I don't want to go through all of that effort, which is going to be, for me, I'm not a very strong developer, a year or two worth of work just to have you guys come in and drop Jammy Jellyfish and be right where I'm at. So is there some guidelines that maybe I can go back to our security department and say, hey, this is what we can do as kind of an interim to getting off of Xenial and onto something that is supported?
So basically you can use Bionic for this because Bionic is already used heavily for the Cloud Foundry and for the open source Cloud Foundry. So it's already used for over a year now, I think.
In production.
In production.
It's
at some big companies.
Okay.
The first question is what you are deploying. I understand you are deploying Cloud Foundry basically.
Correct. Yeah, we're just using Bosch to deploy Cloud Foundry. Again, I'm
because
kind of new to this.
Let's say you are deploying also Kafka or other stuff with Bosch, then you have to ask the question to the Bosch release author. But Cloud Foundry is very stable on bionic stem cells. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, we're just using the pretty much, as far as I know, we're using pretty much basic Cloud Foundry. You know, we don't have a lot of bolt-ons and stuff. A lot of stuff that we have written custom, but we don't really have a lot of, you know, other projects.
And second question is, do you have a sandbox environment where you can try and see if it works quite nicely? Then try there, but you can be pretty confident it's going to work fine.
Right.
I guess there was one component that I read about was on we use NFS Mounter, or is it NFS Volume, I think is the package. And for a while there, they had a blocking issue with Bionic. And I think that was resolved. And I think that was the last piece that we were waiting on before we started moving, because I think we have like 3 dev lanes that we can test this in. And is it just going in using the ops files, or do we just go into the manifest and just change the default from Xenial to Bionic? Is there a recommendation on that? Do we keep with the ops files or change the whole deployment ops files?
Yeah, because then you know that everything is changed correctly. And you need to, of course, change your cloud. You probably need to update your cloud config as well. If you have something added there that is only specific for whatever stem cell version you have, you just need to add Ubuntu Bionic there as well. Okay.
All right. So basically update the ops files and the cloud config.
Yeah. We can take this into Slack if.
Yeah.
For NFS, maybe that's a very good question. I mean, for NFS, but maybe that's the very specific point you need to spend extra time when testing on your sandbox environment, making sure it's working perfectly. Yeah, that's a question that might be a question. I don't have the answer, but you can check.
I appreciate the comments. I do. It's just been something that our security team has been kind of poking me on, and I'm like, I don't know the answers to right now. And I see the direction that you guys are going, and we like it, but we're not sure that the time frame is going to fit with our schedule. But I do appreciate you giving me a couple minutes of some time. Thank you very much.
And the short answer, the only other thing to add on to that is that if you do run into issues, post something in the Bosch channel, and then someone will help you out in some asynchronous mode, but they'll help you out on that.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
General Slack, just if you were not aware.
Yeah. But we're also running production as well, so it's working. So.
Right. Slightly off topic, but fun off topic. So no problem, Justin. You can, I mean, this is the community call, so you're more than welcome to find some time here. But like most people said, Slack is probably the best place to get answers. But yes, if folks did not have much else, I think we can give us all 20 minutes back and see you on the CAP call for March. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Happy Wednesday.